Hello and welcome back to my channel, Rover Turbo. In this video, a new video on a new car which is just over here. So it's again a non-runner. So let me flip the camera around and we'll walk around it and I'll show you what it is and we'll tell you all about it. So it's a 2012 Corsa D, 1 litre petrol, so it's got the 3-cylinder petrol engine in it. It's just been delivered. It's dead, it doesn't start, I think it cranks over. Worst way, it needs an engine. So I've basically bought it on the pretext that I need to put an engine in it. So let's just have a look round it. So it's got 55,000 miles. It's disgustingly dirty inside and out. I don't know how long it's been sitting for. Obviously non-original wheel trims. The bodywork looks okay. It looks like this quarter's been painted badly. Bit of damage to the rear bumper. That will touch up. And these cars are going to be cheap, and I'm not going for immaculate cars here. I'm just looking for cars that people can get into and they can drive and it will be reliable mechanically. That's got to go immediately. I think there's a bit of damage on the sill down there, but apart from that I think it's fine. Inside, this is mine, it's pretty disgusting. McDonald's, there's any crisps in there? Crisps! I ain't eating those. Supposedly it had no paperwork with it, but we found this in the back. So it's got a few stamps in it, which is good. I don't know what else is in there. I think the logbook's missing, but there's the green slip. So hopefully I can apply for a logbook or even change the owner with the green slip. Some people don't like that, they want to see the V5. I don't want to do it. You can do it online as long as that's a valid V5. You can change the owner, if you know what you're doing, with the green slip. So obviously it's got a non-original radio in it. Is that good or bad? Don't know. It's just got loads of McDonald's. Oh, look at that mould. I didn't see that just a minute ago. Oh, that's disgusting. Oh my god. And then loads of McDonald's bits in there. This has obviously been, no offence to anyone out there who's watching, this has been a teenage car. This has been a McDonald's teenage car. Go to McDonald's. Treated it like shit. As I say, no offence to anyone, but that's what I think. It's got the rubbers missing for the pedals, which are in here, luckily. I mean, they've just fallen off. A Casio. Calculator cover. Yeah, let's have a look at the mileage. I know what it is, but I guess it's got no fuel in it. So 55,000 miles. The gauge doesn't even move. Oh, how long did that take? Oh wow, proved me wrong, didn't it? Half a tank of petrol. Let's have a look under the bonnet. There is the 3-cylinder 1 litre engine. I believe that that is the A10 XEP engine, but they also do an X. Is it an X or a Z? It might be a Z. Well, they've done loads of them anyway, but they've done an X and then a Z and then an A10 XEP or EP or whatever. So obviously you need to make sure you get the right engine. Now I believe that the A, there's obviously differences in the engine. So I need to find the engine code, which I think it's down here somewhere. I need to find the engine code. So let's have a look at. Oh. It's not what I was expecting in there. Right, I'm gonna have to try and get that out. Anyway, right, so my plan right now is I'm gonna do an oil check and a water check, get that cap off, see if it's got any water in it. Just assess the situation. I'm not gonna believe it needs a new engine until I know it needs a new engine. So I'm gonna get another battery on there or a boost pack or whatever. I'm probably gonna whip out the spark plugs. I'm gonna have a look at the spark plugs, clean them up, because if this has been running not right, if it's been misfiring for a long time, which it probably has, it's going to have fouled up the plugs, which is why it doesn't start. It could start because it's got no compression. It could start because the chain's gone. I have no idea. So I need to go through this, check the battery, put a charger, put another battery on it, or do whatever I need to do all the checks, and then determine whether it needs a new engine or not. So I'm going to carry on with that, and I'm going to cut back in. The oil level is good, and there's no mixing of water in there. I've managed to get this off. These just need lubing up with a bit of silicone. There's no water in there, so I don't know if the system is completely dry. It just had a water leak and it's been run dry, and that's what's overheated it, and that's what's done the head gasket, assuming it has had a head gasket gone. I've just tested the battery and it's got 8% capacity left in it. So it don't matter what you throw on that, what booster pack you've got on it or whatever, it's probably not going to be able to crank this enough. The capacity, or the capacity that battery hasn't got. So I need to whip that battery off, that's dead, chuck another one on it, see what it does. We've got another battery on it. It's obviously a completely wrong battery, but whatever. It's not a great battery, but I think it's got at least 50% capacity left in it. So I haven't done anything else. I'm just going to see what happens. Yeah, I think we're definitely down on compression there, don't you think? Yeah, we got no compression. So I'm going to whip spark plugs out. I'm just going to have a look at them, see what state they're in, but it's definitely skipping. Okay, so I've just taken the coil pack off, a couple of TX30 bolts, and yeah, there's obviously been a bit of rusty water bouncing about, and I've also noticed that obviously this isn't clipped in. These clips aren't where they should be. This isn't where it should be. So someone's had a go at this. Bloke told me that they didn't want anything to do with it. Of course he does, he's only been told what he's been told, I'm assuming, but someone's had a go at it. Whether because of this fault or because of another fault, I don't know. But whip spark plugs out, gun it off. They sort of look alright to me. They're all wet with petrol. Spark plugs have given a bit of a clean. There wasn't anything wrong with them, to be honest with you. Put the coil pack back in, and we're just going to give it a go, just see what happens. It's not going to start, I know it isn't, and then the next thing we'll do is we'll do a compression test, and then we'll see. I'm a little bit surprised it's not even trying to start. You would have thought it would have at least tried to start, a cough or a splutter, which is odd. So let me just do a compression test, and then we're going to know the situation in there, aren't we? But it's definitely lost all of its water by the look of it. So right, let me do that next. Okay, so that's not horrendous, is it? This is number 2. That's a little bit lower, but it should still start on that. It should start, surely. 2 cylinders have got compression. It should at least try and start. That should definitely start. low, a little bit low on one cylinder. I'm perplexed now. I need to check for spark. What I can, I mean, it could be something. There was definitely fuel spraying through there. I think the injectors are firing. I could smell fuel on the spark plugs. So what I could do, what I might do while I'm here, is chuck a spark plug in the coil pack and try and earth it somehow and see if I'm getting a spark. I've just jerry-rigged this up. Let me just check the ignitions off. I've just put that in there, wrapped a bit of wire around it, and then held this against here and then cranked it so I could lean in, and there is a spark there. So why is it not starting? I'm very confused. It should start. Let me think. So I've checked the codes, there are none. It gets RPM signal, which I'd expect anyway because it's firing fuel when we've got spark. So I haven't studied the video that I just did on the compression, but yes, it's probably low, but I mean, I'd expect none to 50 if it was the head gasket, not even 50, like none. We had 100, was one 120, one was 150, one was 100, I don't know, around that figure. It should run on that, or it should at least try and pop and bang and run. Pop and bang. So I'm thinking, well, is it the coil pack? Is it just a bit corroded? Is there a bit of, because there's a bit of, I don't know if you can see this, look, it's all just a bit of powdery substance in there. If it's been sat in water, like it looks like it has been. So the next thing I'm going to do is just try and clean up all of the springs, the contacts and everything, and just put it back together, because it looks like at least one plug is firing anyway. I mean, I suppose I could check them all. But yeah, let me clean it all up. Maybe we'll check each one to make sure they're all firing, because it could be the coil pack that's dead, or, you know, one's firing and the others aren't. I mean, I don't know. Cleaned them all. It wasn't that bad, to be fair. I've cleaned them all up in there. I've stretched the springs a little bit, and I've just earthed each one of the spark plugs on the negative battery terminal and cranked it over, and we're getting spark on each one of those spark plugs. So we've got spark on all three spark plugs. So I'm going to whack the spark plugs back in again and give it another go and see what happens. I just don't, maybe there wasn't spark and there is now, I don't know. Let's try it and we'll find out. So I'm not expecting this to start or do anything different to what it was doing before, but I don't understand why it's not starting. It's definitely sounding like it's skipping, which is probably that cylinder that's down the hole. I would have thought it would try and do something. After a lot of fiddling about, a lot of diagnosing and figuring out, it's still not starting. So I mean, put your comments down below. I mean, what with those compression, I have to go back and view the video, but with those compression, the spark and the fuel, no codes, everything seems to be there. It's got RPM signal. I would have thought it would have started. So my only thinking is that because this looks, someone's had this cover off, maybe the chain has skipped or snapped. The valves aren't moving, the cams aren't moving in the correct orientation with the, so even though we're getting compression, we're getting it in the wrong place, if that makes sense. Because when you crank it, you can hear a chuff 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 noise coming from somewhere, and it's more apparent when you take this off. Of course, I'm on my own, I can't crank it, and well, I could if I could find a start motor, which I think is behind there somewhere. It might be it's chuffing through the valves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cam cover off, and I'm just going to have a look at the chain, have a look at the cams, crank it, see whether they spin. If I don't have to put an engine in this, they're about £800-ish. You can buy them cheaper, but you know, this is a 55,000 mile, you know, I don't want to put an 80-90,000 mile engine in it. I'll have to do the chain anyway, I would have thought. And I believe, which is what I'm going to do, I'm kind of sidetracking here. Let me go back. Right. The whole plan was originally just to change the engine, because that's what I thought was knackered worst case, and I've still got enough money in this car to just put an engine in it and be done with it. I'm pretty sure at some point or another I watched a video, or I can't remember, but you can take these engines out without removing the gearbox, because there's enough room to pull the engine this way and then pull it out without having to remove the gearbox or the drive shafts or the suspension or anything. Now, I was convinced that that was possible, and I was just trying to find a video of anyone who'd done it so I could confirm in my head that it was possible, because that's what I was going to do. And I reckon it's still possible. There's still enough room in there. All you've got to get past is the input shaft and the flywheel and that, which is, I think it's possible. Now, if I do it, I'm going to video it and I'm going to prove it, that if it's possible. If it's not, it's not, but we'll find out. But I don't want to put an £800 engine in this if I don't have to. I'll quite happily do a head gasket on it. I don't want to go through all of that effort and put a head gasket on it and blah blah blah, or replace the head, which is going to be cheaper than the engine and easier, obviously. If there's nothing wrong with the bottom end. Of course, at this point, I just don't know. So I'm in a bit of a quandary. But just going back to, if anyone has got any ideas in the comments why this isn't starting, in my mind it should start. It should try and start. I've had these where they've had no compression on one cylinder, on a 4-cylinder, mind you. I know there's going to be 3 other cylinders that are going to be contributing. This is only 3, so if one's down, it's only going to have 2 cylinders. But I would have thought it was at least try to start. I don't understand why it isn't. So anyway, I'm going to whip this cover off and we'll see what we find underneath, because obviously someone's already had this off and they've looked in here. So we'll find out. Yeah, I think I found my problem. Now, that someone's obviously had this off was a big clue, wasn't it? So someone's diagnosed it. Obviously someone's diagnosed it, but can you spot it? That's not supposed to do that. That's got a lot of slack in it. Wow. Wow, wowee. That's bad. That's bad, man. So does that mean then, I reckon then, that one of the cams is skipped? The only way to tell that for definite would be to lock it. To put a cam lock, to put a locking kit on it, get it in TDC or wherever it needs to be, and then lock it at the top. Because yeah, I don't know. I don't know where these are supposed to be pointing. So, but what we'll do for shits and giggles, we'll crank it over. Can't do any. It's not going to do any worse now, is it? And we'll see what that chain does. But that, I mean, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Get my hand under there. Spraying all everywhere, obviously. But it seems to be going round. So yeah, I reckon that the chain skipped or whatever. So it's gone tight again now. Whee! If I disconnected the chain, undone all the cam carrier bolts to let the cams up, so all the valves would be closed, then done another compression test, because it had compression, didn't it? Maybe one of the valves, I don't know, it must be just out of sequence. If I could confirm that all the valves are closed and we've got compression on all of the rings, then it's probably done no damage to the bottom end. I mean, do I just take the head off anyway? I don't know, because if I can get all the valves to close and do a leak down test, that will tell me whether the valves are closed or not, or whether it's leaking past the piston rings. Okay, so it took me a while to remember how you time these up. I haven't got a timing kit with me, but I think we've pretty much done all we need to do to confirm what's happened, which is, I've already said it. On these, you lock them, I'm pretty sure, at the bottom of the engine, just above the sump on this side, there is a blanking plug, which you take out, and then you screw in a locking pin, and that goes against the webbing of the crankshaft. So you take it off, slightly off of TDC, you put the pin in, you screw it in, and then you move the engine until it goes dunk, and it hits the pin, and that's in the bottom end is then in time. And at the top end, you've got 2 slots in the back of the cam that you put a flat plate in. If they're upside down, the slots are the other way around, because the slots aren't in the middle, they're at one end of the cam, so you can only slot them in the correct place. And then there is a a metal plate that goes over here, and it locks into this reluctor ring for the camshaft sensor here, and that then picks up these segments so the inlet cam knows where it is. So that's how, if you loosen this off, that's how you get that. You put it as a plate that goes over here, it sits on here, it sits on here, and it locks into this, and then the plate goes in the back and it slots into the back of the cams. I've rotated the engine round at the bottom, loosened off the spark plugs just to make it easy, and you can see, so we've got a slot in the back of the exhaust can here, and this is at the top. So the plate goes across the back here, and you can see that slot is nowhere near where it needs to be. So isn't that bizarre how the inlet cam is, well, either I'm not a TDC, and that isn't, or they both skipped. I don't know. Until I put it into TDC, I have no idea, but the fact remains that the chain has skipped, which is amazing really when you think about the mileage, 55,000 miles, but there you go. So in conclusion, definitely needs a chain. Has it damaged the valves? I don't know at this point. The only way I'm going to know to do that at this point, I might as well be in for a penny, in for a pound, and just cut that chain and then undo all of the cam carrier bolts and let the cams pop up, which will close all of the valves, and then do a leak down test or another compression test, probably a leak down test. I've got a leak down kit. You use compressed air. You basically screw like a compression tester type fitting into a spark plug hole, and you put compressed air into it, and what it does is it fills the cylinder up with air. And obviously if you get a leak of air escaping into the coolant bottle, you know you've got a head gasket leak from the combustion chamber into the coolant. If you get air coming out of the exhaust, you know that you've got an exhaust valve that's not seating. Or if you get air coming out of the inlet, you know that one of the inlet valves isn't seating. And if it's coming out of the crankcase in general, if it's coming out of the actual engine itself, then you know it's leaking down the actual piston rings into the actual crankcase itself. So it's quite a comprehensive. So I will do that, not in this video, but I will do that, and I will video it, and I will show exactly the process, and then we will be able to determine whether, you know, we've got valve damage or whatever, because it may be that we can just put a chain on it and we haven't got to do the head gasket or anything else like that. It has lost water. I don't know how much water it's lost. It could just have a leak. It could just have the water pump could be leaking. I don't know. I mean, there's no water in the oil, there's no mixing, so that just could be a little bit low, and it's got loads of water in it. That will just top up with a couple of litres because it hasn't been maintained, or it's got a small leak. Right, there we are. There is the car. That's part of the diagnosis. I still am unaware of what I need at the moment, but obviously I've got to do a lot more investigation, which I'm not going to get done in this video, but we'll do that in part 2. So stick around, subscribe, tick the bell, just so you can get notifications, so you can see what's happening with this. Put a like, a comment, it all helps out. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.